Welcome, welcome to Bayhill Studio. Today I have a fun project for you. We are going to whip up some candy wrapper zipper pouches. So these are made from actual candy wrappers, from candy bags and candy bar wrappers. And I'm going to talk real quickly about the difference before we get started. But the basic idea is that you have a candy bag or candy wrapper, and we're going to laminate it, and then you sew it up like a regular zipper pouch. You have the quilting cotton for lining and a zipper, and easy peasy, it's ready to go. I have two that I made here to show you, and I want to show you the difference. This one I made with an actual bag. This is the bag of the York peppermint patty, dark chocolate covered peppermint patties, and they're it's a bag that is kind of these bags are a thicker material, and they are really good for using. So I do recommend using these, but you will find when you try this out that the plastics are all made differently. So some do work out and some don't. But this one worked out great, and I want to show you the difference. This is a oversized symphony candy bar. So let me show you. It's about the same size as this giant Hershey bar. And what I have found in using these, they do work, but the wrapper is much thinner in material, and so it will tear at the seams. Let me see if I can find this little hole. I've got a little hole right here. It's hard to see. Maybe you can see that. And so I do recommend using the laminating material on the front and the back, so you have two layers to reinforce that plastic, because just using it like with one layer of laminate on the outside, it's going to tear. I restitched that many times and it still wants to tear. So if I were to do this again, which I will laminate the front and the back for a candy bar wrapper. For the bags, these are sturdy and these work really, really well. Today, I am going to make a pouch out of this Charms Blow Pop bag wrapper. And so this is a larger size. Let's see, it is about 7 by 9 unfinished. And so this will make a little bit of a larger size zipper pouch. And these zipper pouches will be based on whatever size your wrapper is. So I'm not going to give you any measurements. You're going to base the size of the pouch just on your individual wrapper. It can be as small as a little coin purse all the way up to a larger bag. So these are all unique, one of a kind. And let's get started. Okay, to make this bag, this zipper pouch, you're going to need your wrapper, and cut it, square it off so that you have a rectangle or square, whatever size you want, but that it's uniform in size. And I'm using the front and the back of mine. And you'll see you've got this little fold, and that's fine, just leave it. We're going to laminate right over it. These are both the same size. You will also need heat and bond clear iron-on vinyl. So you can get this at fabric stores and online easily. Okay, and you will also need fabric for your lining of your zipper pouch, and you'll need two pieces, and these pieces of fabric need to be the exact same size as your outer piece. So just whatever size this wrapper is, that's the size of your lining, and cut two of those. All right, and then you will need a zipper, and your zipper needs to be as long as your pouch. So this is where I want my zipper. I need this to be the same length or longer. I always use zippers that are longer and cut them down to size, but it can be the same length also. And then you will also need to make our zipper tabs, 2 1.5 inch by about 4 inch long pieces of fabric. It doesn't have to be exactly 4-inch. Sometimes I have scraps. I only have about a 3-inch piece. 3 inches about as short as I would go, because I want room to cut it to the right size for my pouch. So you want 2 of those. These are 1.5 inch by 4 inches. And then of course you want your matching thread, and that is it. Let's get started with our zipper pouch. The first thing we need to do is we need to take our iron on vinyl, and we need to cut a piece that will be able to fit our front and our back. So I am going to, and it needs to be a little bit bigger so you have room to fiddle with. So I'm going to do it this way, and then just cut that. Okay, and so the next thing you do is you'll see this is your vinyl, this shiny side. If I can open it up for you, there you go. And we are just going to peel that off of the backing. This is the tricky part. It's just getting it started. Okay, so I'm going to peel that. Now do this carefully. This side that we just peeled is a little bit tacky, and we don't want to get dust and fabric scraps and all kinds of stuff on it. So I've got it laid out, tacky side up, and then I'm going to lay my wrappers right side facing down towards the tacky side. Okay, now any way you do this, these are going to be wrinkly. Just know that. Let me see. Let me show you this finished bag. It's really wrinkly, and that's the look. It's going to be that way no matter what. From the time that you add the iron-on vinyl and then it'll get more wrinkled as you work with the plastic and turn it right side out and everything. However, before I iron on this vinyl, I like to get as many of the air bubbles out as I can. And with this bag, it's already kind of gathered here, so there's no way I'm going to get all those wrinkles perfectly out. So I'm going to do my best just to press the air bubbles out with a ruler. Any ruler will do. This front side is definitely easier. You can see it's working those bubbles out easier because it doesn't have that seam. And you can see it really is just tacky. Like, this is not sticking down. That's okay. We're going to press this all. You can kind of hear those air bubbles coming out. All right. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to take this to our ironing board, and the same backing that was on our vinyl we use as our pressing fabric, basically. So we cover that vinyl, and I like to take a quick pass with my iron. I don't want to spend too much time like really pressing the way you normally would with fabric, because I don't want to melt the plastic. So this is just really a quick pass over, and I like to hold this down this way so I make sure that I don't melt any. This isn't hanging over the vinyl and doesn't melt into my iron. So I get all of this covered, and I'll iron this really quick, and then I'll iron that part really quick, and then we will trim around the edges to have our 2 pieces. So let's do that. Okay, so I have mine pressed, and I want to show you one tip when you're pressing is after you've gone over this with your iron, it will, this vinyl will, it's tacky still, and it will be kind of stuck down on your ironing board, and that's fine. It won't melt into your ironing board if you're not holding your iron for a long time in one place. However, after you run the iron over it, I suggest leaving this all flat and letting it cool on your ironing board, because if you pull this up while it's hot, these edges will really curl because they're hot. They're hot plastic. So I just like to leave it flat and kind of even press it when it's cool enough to touch, press it with my hands so that those don't curl too much. They're going to curl a little bit no matter what, but that's one tip that I want to share. So now I'm going to take my ruler and just trim the vinyl. Okay, so now that you have these trimmed, it's a good idea to match them up with each other and make sure they are still the same size. Let's see. Those look good, and let's make sure that they are still the same size as our lining fabric, because there's a chance that you could have accidentally, trimmed it, or even with the plastic, it might shrink a little bit. So another thing that you can do is wait to cut your lining fabric until after this step. So I'm just going to trim this now to the right size. And that's about right, but I'll trim it anyways. And then we'll do the second piece. All right. So there we have our 4 pieces, and we are ready to go. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to prepare our zipper tabs. And to do that, I'm going to take each of these strips and I'm going to fold it in half like that. I'm going to press right here, and then I'm going to press in 1/4 of an inch on each side so that it will look like that. And I'm going to do that for both pieces. So my zipper tabs are pressed and ready to go. So let's create our zipper tabs now. You'll see here is the zipper stop, and I am going to cut that off. Now I will say ahead of time, this is the way I like to do this. You're going to find 1,000,001 different ways to create zipper tabs, and I just recommend finding what works best for you and going with that. This works best for me. So this is the way I like to do it. So I like to, now that I've cut off that stop, I like to put that end so that it matches up evenly. It could go a little bit past, but I want it to typically match up evenly with my 1/4 inch fold. The reason why is because of the whole purpose of creating a zipper tab is to reduce that bulk that normally you would have in your zipper pouch. If your zipper went all the way to the end of your bag and you were in the end sewing over all that, you would end up just with a lot of bulk in there. So by taking the zipper part out of that seam that we're going to have later on, the seam will end up in here and we won't have that zipper bulk, and it'll just give you a much neater, nicer looking zipper pouch. So I'm folding it, I'm encasing it now in those folds, in both folds. And you don't have to be exact here with how far in it goes, just so it's at least at 1/4 inch. You don't want it to be less than that because you don't want it to come out. and I am going to just top stitch right over that end. And you know what, I always end up having to rearrange it as soon as I get it to my needle because it wants to come out. And if you're using a polyester zipper like I am here, you can just stitch right over the zipper teeth. It's not going to hurt your needle. If you're using a metal zipper, I like to just hand crank very gingerly over that. Now I'm going to cut these side parts so that they are flush with my zipper. Okay, and for these pouches, I have decided that I want to, let me get my little ruler, that I want to come in 1 inch from the end of that zipper tab. And so I am going to go ahead and cut that now. You could cut it later, just have to keep in mind you want that 1 inch. And then what I'm going to do, now this is curling, and this is again how I like to do this. I don't like to measure my zipper out ahead of time and make my tabs ahead of time because I always am a little bit inaccurate doing it that way, and I just like it to fit just right. So I'm putting my zipper that I cut 1 inch, I'm putting the edge of this tab at the edge of the zipper pouch. I'm going to do this face up, even though when we sew this it will be face down. And then I'm going to take my ruler and also measure in 1 inch from the edge of my bag. And then I'm going to mark that on my zipper with some chalk or a pen. I'm using a really dark zipper, so a pen isn't going to help me here. I won't be able to see it. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of chalk there for reference. And then the next step, I'm going to open my zipper past that mark, and I'm just going to sew across that mark so that it holds both of those little pieces together. So there you have it. It is held together just by that little stitch, and that's just going to hold it in place for me. And now I'm going to snip past that stitching. So I've just created a new zipper basically that's smaller, that's the right size for my zipper pouch. So you're just customizing it. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take your zipper tab and envelope it in there, but this time I just want to make sure that that stitch is hidden. So I'm going to envelope it, saying it wrong, envelope, just past that stitching, and now I'm going to top stitch right over it. Okay, and then I'm going to cut that again, and this doesn't have to be exact. Don't overthink it too much. And now I'm going to, it should be 1 inch from the seam just like this other one was, but I'll show you. I don't know what happened with this one, but one of mine ended up much smaller than the other one, and it really doesn't matter. But some people like to be exact, and so sometimes that happens. It's okay. So I'm holding this at the corner, and now this shows me where I want to cut. And quite honestly, I don't even have to cut this now. In fact, I won't, just to show you I don't have to. I can cut that off later after I sew it. So our first step next is going to be sewing the zipper to our pouch and just putting the whole thing together. All right, so for this step, you might want to use a zipper foot. I'm using just a really narrow foot. It does like, I think it's like a 1/8 inch foot or something that my machine has, and it works just as well for me as a zipper foot for this. Now, some people, when they do this, they like to create a zipper, I call it a zipper sandwich. They like to zipper sandwich the whole thing and sew it all at once. I don't like to do that because I feel like it doesn't give me control over what I'm doing, and I end up with a kind of a wonky zipper. So I create a zipper sandwich by first sewing my zipper face down to the right side of either side of the pouch. So I'm starting with the top portion. Zippers face down, pouches face up, and I'm just going to sew close to my zipper teeth right along the seam. Now when you get close to your zipper pull, just raise your presser foot and open or close the zipper so that it's away from your presser foot, and then keep going. Okay, so now you see this is all stitched in place, and now it's really easy just to snip off that end. And just for fun, look at that. It did come out wonky again. This one came out 1 1/4, a little bit off. If you don't like that, don't cut this ahead of time like I did. Just keep your end on and adjust this, sew it in place, then cut your ends off, and then you can make sure that you get these both exactly how you want it. This doesn't bother me right now. If I was making this for someone else, I probably would want to be a little more perfect about it. All right, so now I'm putting my lining, this is my zipper sandwich, on one side of the zipper tape. I'm putting my lining face down. So my outer piece is face up, my zipper is face down, and my lining is face down. And so we're just encasing this one side of our zipper, basically, making a sandwich around it. Again, when you get to that zipper pull, just move it out of the way. Okay, so now I've got one side done, and now I'm going to give you two options for this, and let's just see how this wrapper wants to play here. So option one is you can use your fingernail and gently finger press, and this is going to work just fine. Finger press this down. Typically on a zipper pouch, I would say top stitch right here because you don't want this coming out, but because this is plastic, look at that, it's just staying down. However, my lining fabric still could come up and get caught in the zipper. So you can top stitch the whole thing, and I'll show you the two that I did. Here's one where I top stitched all along. So if you're using a matching thread, you're hardly going to see that. This one I didn't, and it was just fine. And the reason why it works is because I top stitch the lining, and I'll show you how to do that. So option one is top stitch that whole thing through all the layers, just close to the edge, the seam. Or you can open this up so you make sure your zipper's out of the way, and you want this, all of the raw edges to be facing down towards your lining. Okay, so your zipper's up here, but all of the raw edges are facing the lining, and you're going to top stitch in this on your raw edges basically. And you could turn it over and do it this way. I'll do it this way to show you. Top stitch along this seam. So there is another look at what it looks like on the back side, and we'll just give it a top stitch. There you go. So now I haven't top stitched on the outside, but my lining is definitely secure on the inside. So either way, I've done it both ways, and I like it both ways. So there's your option. All right, let's continue. So to do the back of our zipper pouch, we're just going to make a zipper sandwich over this half of the zipper tape now. So to do that, you always want your right sides of the like fabric facing each other. So our outer pieces are the same, they're the outside, so we want them facing each other. And I'm going to put that down. And sew this exact same way, just close to that zipper, the zipper teeth. Now, the only tricky thing with working with these is it is slippery, so you have to keep readjusting as you go. All right, so I've got that sewn on. And again, right sides facing. So now I want the right sides of my lining facing. And I am going to sew again onto this side of the zipper tape. It still needs a lining. It has the outside piece, now it needs the lining piece. So I'm going to match that up. All right, let's open it up and look how close we're getting. So again, we are going to top stitch. So I've got these raw edges facing towards my lining, and you can see that. And now I'm going to just top stitch on my lining only. Okay, and then in addition, I want to finger press the candy wrapper, the outside piece down so that it is in place. All right, now here's where I'm going to do a check. I can see that I've got uneven edges because my wrapper slid around while I was sewing. So what I'm going to do is I am going to trim off my edges so that it's all uniform again. Now it's time to assemble the entire bag, get this together, and at this point, just make a note, check that your zipper is open. If you sew this all and your zipper is closed, you won't be able to turn it right side out, and you'll end up having to unpick. So just make sure your zipper's open at this point. And then we are going to place our right sides together of both pieces. So our lining is right sides together, and our outer pieces are right sides together. And then I want to take my zipper tab and pinch it so that it's facing towards the lining. Okay. So my raw edges are going to face towards this side, but my zipper tab is facing towards the lining, just like that, and I'm going to pinch it in place. Do the same thing here. Just like that. Okay, and so then when we sew it, this will all look nice and neat. The other tip that I want to give, we're going to sew around the whole perimeter, starting at the bottom here. Usually I would say leave about 3 inches opening because we're using plastic, which is a lot more difficult to turn right side out, I'm going to leave a much larger opening. As wide as I can leave it is what I'm going to do so that I have an easier time turning. So let's sew this together. All right, so at this point we're going to sew around all of the edges. Take it nice and slow when you get to this side, because again, this plastic will slide around. So just take it nice and slow, leave a nice generous opening. Double check that your zipper is open. When you get to the seam, it's gonna be bulky. Even though we did take out the zipper bulk, it's still gonna be bulky. So just go nice and slow over this section. Okay, so we've got it all sewn, and now before I turn it right side out, I'm going to clip my corners close to the stitching, but not through the stitching, on a diagonal. And now we just reach in through the entire bag, and I like to start by grabbing one corner and just gently pull this through. And this is where it's going to add a lot more wrinkle to your bag, and that's just the way it is. You don't want to iron this afterwards to get the wrinkles out. It's going to melt your plastic. So you just have to appreciate that look. It's kind of a fun look. I like it. Okay, so we just pop out our zipper tabs like that. And like that. Now, real quick before we keep turning, notice the difference. This is a smaller zipper tab, and honestly it's just fine. But I want you to see this longer one. Just gives you a lot more space there. So next time I'll try to make these more even. I don't mind that they're this way, but I do want to show you the difference so that you can decide how big you want your tabs to be. You can make them as big as you want, and each bag you make might be different depending on what you're trying to achieve with it. So I am carefully now poking out these corners. Normally with fabric, I could not use as much care as I am here, but I do not want to poke a hole through this plastic. So I'm not going to worry if my corners aren't perfect. Now, what about our opening? Let's bring that back out. I am going to simply fold my raw edges under about 1/4 inch, like that, and then I'm going to top stitch over that opening. You might be more comfortable pinning or clipping that in place. I get a little impatient and I just like to zip right over it. Okay, so now we just push the lining back in our bag, smush that flat, and look at that. An adorable zipper pouch. How fun is that? I love this. You can actually store your candy stash in here, or use it as a normal zipper pouch to store all your little odds and ends and goodies. So easy and fun, and a fun gift idea. Well, I hope you enjoyed this fun and easy tutorial to make a candy wrapper zipper pouch. I love everything about this. This is so fun. I know that this would make an excellent Christmas or birthday gift for my teens and young adults, or my besties, I'm going to be honest. So we did one where we top stitched. We have a few different ideas for you, or these where we don't top stitch and that stitching is hidden on the inside. We learned how to make zipper tabs, and we learned how to use iron-on vinyl. So we've got a lot of fun things going on here, and I hope that you make your own and share them with me on Instagram. Tag me at Bayhill Studio. I'd love to see what you make. Thanks, and have a great day.